Let's get to Portland, since I tried to do that already once before, because this is the team that could ruin us. Although based on the last like 3 years, we're just going to have Damian Lillard and the front office stare each other down and wait for someone to like say pull the ripcord, and it just won't ever happen. Although it's going to happen. That's my prediction. Anyway, so this is a huge swing team. Well, we'll get through the basics here, and then we can talk about that. I don't know if my take is hot, but I'm kind of annoyed enough by this to have a semi-hot take. So key free agents, Jeremy Grant, that's a big one. Matisse Thybulle is restricted, as is Cam Reddish. Drew Eubanks is also unrestricted. No extension candidates. They will probably have the mini MLE if they keep Jeremy Grant and either Thybulle or Reddish. They still have the Gary Payton II trade exception, which is worth $8.3 million. That's good through February of next year. Biggest needs. Do we even start there, or do we just start talking about Damian Lillard? Because I think that's probably the thing we need to hit.
Let's go through this as if they're going to keep Dame first, and then we get it. Because look, they said they plan on building a winner around him, and he had a meeting with them. And so we'll get into the Damian Lillard. And in fairness to Blazers fans, they're tired of hearing about the Damian. And I totally get. I'm tired of hearing about the Damian, talking about the Damian Lillard stuff. So let's go through this as if they're keeping Damian Lillard. And so the theory is, if you can, so what their key free agents, as you already mentioned, really are Cam Reddish, Matisse Thybulle, and Jeremy Grant. If they keep 2 of those players, they are maybe in the tax. They're a mini MLE team. I don't even know if they would spend the entire mini MLE. We can get into targets and what their biggest need is at that point. I would still say it's, can they modernize? You've been big on this, the 5-man rotation. I know that Yusuf Nurkic has extended his range beyond the 3-point line, but he's not the most, and he can hold up. Opponent shot like 58% against him at the rim last year. That's perfectly fine, but he's more of a standstill rim protector. Like, you want someone with more mobility there, even if they're going to compromise some of your spacing. They probably still need a backup. But they always need a backup point guard. They just refuse to like invest in one. I know they have Simons, who's incrementally improved as a passer, yada, yada, yada. But they could also use like other wings, like reliable shooting wings, because I don't know if Matisse Thybulle can replicate him shooting 1,000,000,000% from 3. So,
I know, Dan, and he can't. He can't.
So there's needs, and I think that we could talk about, let's just list some free agent targets that could make sense for them. Again, they're in the mini MLE territory. Like, if you want a rim runner, Dwight Powell, Jock Landale's definitely more of a mobile rim protector on the offensive end, defensive end, excuse me. Javon Carter as sort of a backup one. Jay Crowder, Torrey Craig, if you're looking for maybe like combo forwards who could hit threes at a more reliable clip than a Thybulle or a Cam Reddish. But like, that's the name. Like, Jay Crowder is probably the most ambitious outside free agent type name that you could expect to get, right? Unless you really think Ayo Dosunmu's market's going to crater.
Yeah, I was going to say, depending on how you feel about Carter, but like, that's at least that's kind of bleak. That's like a close question. Like, who are we going to fire the bullets at? Is it going to be Javon Carter or Jay Crowder? It's not exactly like murderer's row here.
Right. And so my question to you is, if the plan is, and I understand that this is going to lead into the Damian Lillard discussion.
Yeah.
And let's get this out of the way. As currently constructed, this team, bring back Jeremy Grant and at least one of Matisse Thybulle and Cam Reddish. They will fight maybe for a bottom playoff spot, play-in spot. And a lot of that's going to depend on how good Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe are next season, how much they're even playing. I understand why the Blazers want to keep both those dudes. Shaedon Sharpe showed a lot of some of the shots that he can hit is absolutely ridiculous. And he has that sort of at-will rim pressure. Scoot Henderson's almost the same way. Mm-hmm. And if you trust him to just be able to play off the ball, hit some set threes, even if he's not going to develop an off-the-dribble three, everything else is like, yeah, that works alongside Damian Lillard. They could be good. But now you're at a point where it's okay, Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, Damian Lillard, Scoot Henderson, none of those guys are wings. Shaedon Sharpe comes the closest. None of them are wings. But let's just, again, you're keeping Sharpe and Henderson, and I get why you want to do this. You're keeping Damian Lillard. Who is the best player that you can acquire via trade with your remaining assets, which, by the by, would be maybe if you want to include Chris Murray there, but it's Chris Murray plus Anthony Simons plus, if you want to trade draft picks, you have a lottery protected pick to Chicago through 2028. So it has to be first allowable pick language or renegotiate with Chicago to get that pick unprotected, which maybe you could do. So who's the best player? Or you have Yusuf Nurkic's salary too, but who's the best player you can acquire using some combination of that package.
This is the problem. And you're right. This does get us into the broader Lillard discussion.
It's not OG Anunoby, spoiler alert. You're not getting OG Anunoby.
I was going to say that's the point, because it isn't OG Anunoby. And because that is about the minimum threshold at where I start to say, okay, like maybe this does make sense. Because you go Lillard, you go Scoot, OG, Jeremy Grant, Nurkic, or maybe you move Nurkic to get someone who fits better. Then all this talk about we're going to build a contender around Dame. He's going to wait to see what we do before he makes a decision. Then it's like, then there maybe is a decision to be made, but I don't think that's enough for Anunoby. It's certainly not enough for Pascal Siakam. It's not enough for just, you name anybody else that's been rumored. Like, I guess probably in hindsight, it would have been enough for John Collins based on what Collins went for. But that's the issue is you, unless you have another name, maybe that was a rhetorical question. I don't know, but
I think you could get, if it was just, I think you could get Miles Turner, and maybe you wouldn't even have to give up Simons. It's Nurkic and Chris, and then a pick, or it's like you're getting off Nurkic's money in the process, which that hurts your rebounding, but it definitely helps your defense. My hot take is, and if Blazers fans are still listening, because I feel like they might have tuned out after we said they can't get OG, if I'm the Raptors and the Blazers offered Murray and Anthony Simons, or Simons and first allowable first round pick, I would do it for OG. I would absolutely do it. That's how high I am on Anthony Simons, and also what I think his fit could be in Toronto. Mm-hmm. So from my perspective, I think you could get OG. I don't think Toronto, from that perspective, but you're certainly not getting Mikal Bridges. Like these names that are popping up. You're certainly not getting Pascal Siakam. Like that stuff is not happening without including Scoot Henderson or it's not happening.
Yeah. No, I mean,
and I think the issue is that you're more than an OG Anunoby away from actually contending for a title within Damian Lillard's window. And
that is the issue.
If he considers winning, contending for a playoff spot, that's fine. If that's what he wants to do, that's fine. And you could juggle these whatever timelines. But if he wants to contend for a title and they don't want to trade Scoot and Sharp, and I'm not I don't know what the deal out there is to trade either one of those players that would make me feel comfortable. I'm probably a little lower on Sharp than consensus, but I wouldn't be trading Scoot Henderson just as a package built around Pascal Siakam. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I understand that you're at the behest of the trade market, but it does seem like, whether they admit it or not, Damian Lillard and the Blazers, unless they're misleading us all publicly, have warring agendas or aims at this point.
Yeah, I think it's just, I think Portland and Joe Cronin and the executives and even ownership, I think they just don't want to be the ones. This is like a hack take, but I'm not going to apologize for it because I think it's right. I think what they've done, drafting Scoot, not trading Sharp even last year, and definitely not trading either of those guys so far, is the right decision, because I think Portland is doing the smart thing by accumulating like super young, super high upside assets, and they're looking down the road, like just like any normal sane team would do that didn't also happen to have an iconic, $200+ million player on the roster that you owe something to. I think the Blazers are just waiting until Lillard asks for a trade so that they don't have to be the ones that are, saddled with, you ended this. Like we're talking about The Last Dance. Like, oh, now we're not going to be able to fruitlessly chase the 9th seed or whatever for the next couple of years, because that's what they've been doing. I just think that's by far the most logical way to explain all this. Is Portland absolutely is operating as if Dame will be gone, except it just doesn't want to be the one to make him gone. The Blazers want a trade request so they can do this, get the 2 firsts and Jaime Jaquez and Tyler Hero or whatever from Miami and move on. Like that is where this is going. It just can't end any other way.
I will say, I don't think they're in danger. People are saying of Bradley Bealing this up. Dame doesn't have a no trade clause, but they're going to operate as if he does. And so if you're probably going to trade him to Brooklyn or Miami when it happens, it seems like those best offers from those teams aren't going anywhere. So if you actually want to, I could understand that logic as a counter to your argument. And it's just, you're not going to Bradley Beal this up because he will have more value. But this organization, and if and when they move him, they're not just going to send him wherever. It would take, like, if they just sent him to whatever team had the, like, if they just sent him to, I'm trying to think of like who just wouldn't be on his list would be so outlandish, but like they might have interest in him. Like if he didn't want to go to Chicago,
Yeah.
And like Chicago doesn't even have the best offer, but like they're not just going to send him to Charlotte because Charlotte offered them LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. So like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's right. I also think, like, if you're just being as unsentimental about it as possible, aren't you a little bit interested in just having his contract off the books? Because what you know is in a Damian Lillard career year, you can finish 13th in the West. Like, you're
It's
returning almost that entire same team plus a rookie. As great as Scoot might be, probably not going to be very good in terms of winning this year. So it's like, what is the upside here? We just spend this money on Dame again. His value declines maybe incrementally because he gets a year older. He's not going to have as good a year as he did last year. I get it. The offers will be there, and this isn't like nobody's over a barrel really. But I think the offers get worse. I think they get worse the longer you wait.
maybe, but I don't think they're going to be can't miss from Brooklyn or like Miami's best offer is not can't
They're
miss.
not very good now. Yeah, that's the thing.
So I'm just like, how much are they actually going to lower it? And at that point, is there value in, hey, you just said we know we could be 13th in the West with Dame having a career year. Are there worse scenarios than having Dame put butts in the seats, retaining that connection to the community and organization, and then still winding up with a top lottery pick?
Yeah,
If you think
well,
he's going to infringe,
the downside is we have to go through the same shit again for a full year of will they trade him? Will he ask for a trade? I'm sick of it. I'm ready for I want a new slant.
yeah, I totally get that, but I'm just like, as you said, they've proven, unless you think he's going to infringe on the development of Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp, Damian Lillard is not like a monopolizing player. But I just think because there's so much positional overlap there that it's not. You would have to move Simons then to be like, okay, like let's make sure the pathway's open for Scoot. And like I don't think it's as damaging to keep him. I just feel like there's a disconnect from either reality or there's this purposeful pageantry going on right now between both parties, where it's like Portland's trying to drive up the asking price, or as you said, it's this weird game of chicken where Dame doesn't want to be the player who asks her out. The Blazers don't want to be the organization that trades their franchise talent.
And I think the uncynical take would be that, like, and maybe this is the case, that Lillard like sincerely doesn't know. Like, he really does want to see if they can do anything to make it, because all things being equal, he seems very clearly to just want to be in Portland, which that's awesome. Like, great, like be where you're happy. The other thing you made me think of is like the butts in the seats thing. And like, I'm pretty sure if you say Scoot has the keys now, starting from game one, like people are going to be pretty psyched about that. So like the downside of trading Lillard, like from a PR standpoint and from there aren't a lot of them. I think it's a bummer. And the end of anything is sad. The end of the Lillard era in Portland will suck. Like, he's the best player the team has ever had. So like, that's hard, but just as like, what a soft landing that it's like, we got Scoot now. We got another 10 years plus of like an awesome lead guard that everyone's going to love. It's just everything lines up to just do this. And they haven't done it yet.